Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 128. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I am the host, and this show, I invite amazing fellow online service-based entrepreneurs onto the show to talk about their business, give us some great tangible tips, and talk about one thing that we all love to dive into, which is money. Also, every now and then, I do a solo show, usually every other week. Today happens to be a little different, but those solo shows revolve around money mindset or practical, tactical implementation tools, strategies, resources when it comes to building a financial foundation in your business. And that is what I wanted to bring you today. I recognized that the last handful of episodes, especially the solo shows, have been more mindset focused. And so I wanted to bring some really just like you can get your hands on it, tactical information and suggestions and just things to think about when it comes to the almost the tools aspect of implementing a financial foundation in your business. So today I'm going to dive into the topic of business bank accounts. I'm going to tackle the question of, do you even need a business bank account for your business, as well as what to look for when you are in the market to sign up for a business bank account, or maybe you're just not super happy with your current one and you're thinking about switching. I have a couple of recommendations, although business banking is a lot different from personal banking. It frustrates me in a lot of ways, and that's why I wanted to create this episode, because there are some very specific things you want to look for, but the business banking world is just a little bit different than the personal banking world. So yeah, we're going to go down that rabbit hole as well. Hopefully you'll come away with it with some really actionable tips and strategies and tools and resources to look into for your business. Before I dive into this week's episode, you are going to hear a lot about the easy profit system and what to look for when it comes to business bank accounts so that you can implement the easy profit system. If you're wondering what that is, I dive into it in my easy profit roadmap. I give you the 5 steps to set up the system. These are 5 steps I take my one-on-one private coaching clients through, and you can get that roadmap for free. It's a download by going to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap. Also in that roadmap is some easy profit math that will walk you through the steps to essentially plug and chug some numbers so you can come up with your very own purpose-driven revenue goal. Now, I could get on a whole soapbox about what business owners are doing wrong when it comes to setting goals in their business, especially money goals. There's a time and a place for that, but I think today is not that day. I did touch on it in last week's episode when I talked about the prime derivatives. Gosh, I always say that because I am a math nerd. The prime directives of the subconscious mind and why we need specific goals and we need to be very clear and concise about them. You can go back to episode, 127 to check that out and get more information on that. Today, we're going to dive into the banking, but go to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap so you can get the 5 steps for your easy profit system, how to implement that. And one of those steps is to define your purpose-driven revenue goal. So when you define that, you'll be able to further implement that system, and you need the easy profit math to define that. So I give you all to you in that one super easy download. All right, let's talk about business bank accounts. The first question that I often get, and I see a lot of business owners get confused and tripped up on, is, do I need to set up a business bank account for my business? So let me tackle this the best way I know how. The first answer to this question, I guess, is you absolutely need to separate your business income and expenses from your personal income and expenses. If you've been around here for long enough, you probably know this already. But whether that's going to be you having your personal income and personal expenses in your current bank account that you've been using for personal purposes, that's fine. That's probably a personal bank. whether you have that and then you set up another personal bank account for your business income and expenses, I mean, if that's what you need to do just to get started, then do that. But we definitely need to separate your business inflows and your business outflows from your personal income inflows and personal income outflows. So you absolutely can, whether you're just getting started or you're just making this conscious decision, set up all of your business inflows and outflows through another personal bank account. So it would be categorized as a personal bank account, but it's separate from your actual personal spending. Maybe you have like a local community bank where you're doing all of your personal banking, and then you go and set up, for example, I'm going to use my bank and my favorite personal bank, which is Ally Bank. They are an online bank. They're wonderful. Maybe you set up your business flows through Ally Bank. So it'd be Ally Bank is where all of your business stuff is happening. Your local community bank or credit union is where your personal stuff is happening. That's totally fine. That could be a really great place to start. Now, it is important to distinguish the fact that Ally Bank does not offer business checking or savings. So it's still considered a personal bank account, but you can at least separate the cash flow in two different places. Okay, beat that horse to death. The reason why I think it's important to talk about this, though, is because a lot of people think that they need to have a business bank account. And there's many reasons to have a business bank account, but I would say it is not absolutely necessary. Also, in order to get a business bank account, you usually need to have a tax identification number. Now, you can set up a tax identification number even if you're not an LLC or incorporated. You could still, as a sole proprietor, go and I think you just do it through irs.org. I can't quite remember how I did it, but I believe it's kind of through that method. And you should be able to set up a tax identification number so that you can create a business bank even if you are a sole proprietor. So that's really important. I'm not going to get too much into the nitty gritty because this could be a really long podcast about like why you would go from sole proprietor to LLC to S Corp or C Corp or just incorporate in general. But do note that, there are reasons to switch between the two. And I will touch on it a little bit, but not get super in the weeds about it. For a lot of people, especially if you're a freelancer or you're just starting out and you're not ready to file your articles of organization through an LLC or a corporation, then you can be a sole proprietor, you can get a tax identification number, and you can set up a business bank account that way. However, if you plan to maybe someday file for an LLC or incorporate, then you're going to have to get most likely a new tax identification number for your LLC, and then you'll have to set up an entirely new business bank account because from my experience, switching between, one that is attached to your own sole proprietorship and switching it to an LLC can get really complex. So in the meantime, if you want to, you can wait on that. You can have all of your business inflows and outflows through a personal bank account and then choose to switch over to a business bank account when you get your LLC or your corp set up. Okay. I hope that's not too confusing. I'm always happy to answer questions if things do feel a little bit, you get a little lost in translation here. So always make sure you reach out to me you can message me on Instagram at Tess_Wicks as you're listening to the episode. Okay, we're not going to, again, get into the nitty-gritty of why you would set up these different things. However, the one differentiator between a sole proprietorship and an LLC is by creating an LLC for your business that provides a layer of protection for your personal assets and your business assets. So if someone was to come after you personally, they wouldn't be able to come after maybe the money that you would have under your business. And if they were to come after your business for whatever reason, they wouldn't be able to come after your personal assets. Now, this is highly dependable. There's a lot of nuances in here, and you'd want to consult with an attorney, someone who's a professional and understands and can actually advise you, because I can't do that. I don't know your situation, but actually advise you on how to protect yourself in that way. But that is typically why people will incorporate or set up an LLC, is because they want that layer of legal protection, because an LLC stands for limited liability company. If you set up an LLC, you have this layer of protection. Now, technically, again, you can still have a personal bank account for your business operations, even if you have an LLC. Now, the personal bank account, though, will be set up based off of your personal social security number. So in that creates a little gray area of how you're actually protecting your assets. So that would be another reason why under your LLC, you would go forward and set up a business bank account using your tax identification number from your business. And that just adds an extra separation of knowing whoever's making these decisions, what assets are the businesses, the LLC's assets under this business bank account that accepts tax identification numbers for LLCs and so on and so forth, versus what are your assets that are under this personal bank account that is attached to your social security number. So that's a really important distinguisher to make. Pretty much, like, the main reasons to set up a business bank account is so you can have that legal separation, like an even additional layer for that legal separation, as well as being able to, in some cases, people just want to provide and appear more professional. So if they're writing checks or they're write a check to your business, you can say, oh, write it to my business bank account. And so they can write it to your business's LLC name. A lot of people just like to have that business bank account so that they can have kind of that appeal of professionalism. So there's the legal aspect. There's also this kind of professional aspect. There's additionally more things that a lot of business bank accounts allow you to do. The one thing that I note for those who I particularly serve, and most of you listening to the podcast, if you're in that service space, you probably aren't having like big vendor checks or payments that need to be made. You might not be worrying too much about like major payroll. There's a lot of additional nuances that business bank accounts do provide for some of those businesses that need those additional features. But if you are a, solopreneur, service-based business, you're not going to actually need some of those features, and therefore you could get by with a personal bank account instead of a business bank account. Still being separated from your personal inflows and outflows, but it could just technically be categorized as a personal bank account. I think that's really important because, and this is the big kicker, a lot of business bank accounts charge quite a bit of money or have really high standards of requirements for you to utilize them. You'll find business bank accounts that charge you a monthly maintenance fee. And so you're paying like $12 a month just to have that account. You might pay that monthly maintenance fee for a checking account and a savings account, like $12 here, $12 there. In some cases, you can waive those fees by holding a certain minimum amount in the account. So maybe it's, I know Chase has a requirement for like $1,500 balance on average as a minimum. So like averaged out over the month or so, then they want to see that you have on average $1,500 in your checking account. And then if the average drops below that at the end of the month, they'll charge you a fee. There's a lot of different kind of like really stringent requirements. And personally, I don't like that. So I can see the appeal for people to not even want to hassle with setting up a business bank account because they have these additional requirements and instead sticking with the personal account. And in some cases, business banks also require you to have like an LLC or incorporate. It's not just an EIN number in order to set it up because they require you to like send over your articles of organization and whatnot. And so in that case, if you aren't set up yet, again, you might not be able to get your business bank account set up. And then the other thing is sometimes it just takes longer to set them up than being able to set up a personal bank account. Now, I have seen some startups on the scene that are making it more easy and fast-paced to set up a business bank account, so that could be a good alternative. However, those newer startup online account companies don't necessarily offer some of the things that I am personally looking for myself as well as for my clients, which I'm going to get into more in a little bit. But because of a lot of these higher costs or higher requirements, it can cause a lot of, especially smaller business owners, to not exactly want to do business with these business bank accounts because they're not able to meet, a $1,500 average balance because maybe they need to use that money for something, or maybe they like to separate their money out into various accounts, and therefore they might have $1,500, but they'd rather keep that $1,500 in a higher yield savings account or something like that. The other thing is a lot of business banks won't offer that much in terms of interest, which I guess when you boil it down is okay because most people aren't saving that much for their business. However, the way that I teach the cash flow system that I do, in some cases, it would be nice to have a higher interest rate. And so that additionally would be another reason why you might move out of a business bank and go more towards a personal bank, because personal banks do tend to offer higher yielding rates. Some businesses will offer higher rates, but again, it comes with you need $50,000 just to open that account, and then there's no fees, but you have to transfer $50,000. And I'd much rather have you transfer that to an investment account and not have that sitting in a savings. Lots of very high threshold expectations and standards just to get up and running in the business side. And as I mentioned, there are some great startups and other banks that don't have some of these standards, but I would say most of them do. So you want to be really clear when looking for a business bank to get set up, or if you're starting to realize, oh, my business bank is charging me a lot of money. At the end of the day, I'm paying $8 or $12 a month just to bank with this company. Then you might be in the market for a new business bank account too. So I wanted to provide a little checklist of things to consider when looking at a business bank account. We've gone through why you may or may not want to set up a business bank account. At the end of the day, I think it's really just up to you and what you're looking for. Do you want that professionality? Do you want that separation of assets between your personal assets and your business's assets? Do you have an LLC or are you incorporated? And so does that feel like the right next step? I know that I personally waited until I filed my LLC to set up my business bank account because I didn't want to get two tax identification numbers and worry about that. So in the meantime, all of my business banking was just happening through a personal account, but separate from my personal banking. And that's a really important distinguishment to make. That's where I started. And then I filed my articles of organization, I got my EIN, and then I was able to set up my business bank accounts. So here's what I want, and I encourage you to look for. And at the end of the day, if you don't choose to utilize these, that's okay. It's entirely up to you. But what I encourage people to look for when researching and then deciding to move forward with a business banking system is, first and foremost, one that does not charge you monthly maintenance fees. I think it's ridiculous to have to pay money for someone to hold your money, especially because the way that banks make money is they essentially take your money that you deposit into their accounts, and they take that and they loan that to other people. A lot of business bank accounts aren't giving you any interest, but they're loaning your money out to other businesses in forms of business loans, at an interest rate of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20%, and 20% if they're giving credit cards. But the ability to do that means that they're making an enormous amount of money on the interest payments that those people are paying on their loans, and it's off of your money that you've invested with them. I'm sorry, not invested. I keep saying invested. It is not investing when you put your money in the bank that you have deposited with them, okay? It just grinds my gears personally. It's a personal problem, but it makes me upset when businesses are going to charge you a monthly fee to do business, especially for small businesses. Because, girlfriend, I hear you. We're just trying to get up and running and figure out how to make this work. And if we can spend $8 on our bank or $8 on a new email marketing platform, it's really going to bring us a lot of value. That's a big decision we have to make as small business owners. There's the money mindset part, which is just spend the money. But I also feel it is super important to be a good financial steward of your money as well. So making sure that you're taking care of it as you want it to take care of you. And spending $8 a month on just being able to bank when you have alternatives out there that won't charge you that, yeah, I would go the other way. In addition to that, I like to look for banks that don't require any sort of minimum balance requirement. Even if it's a minimum starting, although, I'll happily transfer $2,000 even of my own personal cash into a bank just so that they'll open the account and then I'll transfer the money back, as long as they aren't requiring me to keep $2,000 as an average balance or as a balance in that account. That's for me, just ridiculous. But I will, if I need to like work around it, I could do that. So if they have any sort of, you need to have an average daily balance of X amount, or you have to just hold a minimum balance of X amount, usually I'm going the other way. I don't want to deal with that. If it's really small, $100, $200, I might consider it, but only if the other option is just too much of a headache to do, aka find an alternative account, which for the most part, and I say this to my clients too, this is something that you're not going to want to do. If you are faced with the opportunity to pay $8 a month or look for a new account that's not going to charge you this, allow you to do all the things you want, I say make the investment of your time and energy to look for that account, because once you get set up on that new account that allows you to do whatever you want, you never have to worry about it again. And psychologically, for your own entrepreneurial behavior, it is so much better for you to have the things that you know work for you that you don't have to ever think about again, as opposed to continuously pay out this amount of money month over month, and even more so, the account that you're currently with might not allow you to do additional things that you want to do. So it is worth the time and, in some cases, visiting the account or the bank in person and having a talk with them and having them set it up for you, because sometimes it takes an in-person visit. It's hard. I understand. We like to do things all online now, but that effort and energy and time that you put into it at the forefront is going to set things up for you so much better over the long term. And again, you probably never have to do that ever again. So might as well just rip the Band-Aid off and do it once and then be done with it. It's totally worth it. The minimum requirement of a balance is something that I typically really make sure I don't have to do unless the opposite, like finding another bank, is going to be extremely hard and the bank usually has to check all my other boxes. But this can be difficult because the next requirement that I like to look for is a bank that allows me to open up multiple checking and multiple savings accounts that, again, aren't going to charge me fees for multiple, aren't going to have minimum requirements that are super high. And this is important because I utilize a multiple banking system so that I can create profit inevitably in my business. I can separate out my business income from my business outflows, and I make sure I'm saving for taxes every single month so that I have money to pay my taxes at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year. So I like to look for banks that will allow me to set up at least 2 checking accounts and at least 2 savings accounts. If you can only do 1 savings account, that can work, but it's not my ideal. However, it can work and you can work around it if you are looking to set up the easy profit system. Now, again, this is the part where it's really important to have this if you want to set up the easy profit system or do any sort of multiple bank account budgeting, cash flow sort of foundation for your business. And that is really important for me and the clients that I work with because it simplifies things so much for them. This is one of the hardest things to find across business banks, is there the ability and willingness to allow you to have 2 checking accounts at the minimum and then any sort of savings accounts that, again, don't charge you a monthly fee and don't have any minimum requirement. So that is really important. There are business bank accounts that do allow you to open up multiple checking and savings accounts that don't have these fees. I've found a couple. One that I know of that is new to me, but I really like what they offer. They're one of the easiest ones, I would say, to get this all set up for you is First Internet Bank, the company that will allow you to set up online checking, online savings, not charge any sort of fees, monthly maintenance fees, and not charge any or not require any sort of minimum balance requirement. And I really like that. So First Internet Bank is one of the unicorns in the industry at this time. Again, there are some that are trying to get there, but it's really hard for them to be able to offer a savings account or multiple checking and savings accounts. And so they're just not quite there yet. So First Internet Bank is one that I've found across the board. You can set it up online. They're available in all 50 states and you can get it all done there. The other one I know that does this is US Bank, although I have found that US Bank, you have to go see them in person to get this set up. And if you don't have one around you, that creates a little bit of an issue. So you can get your business banking set up, but then you have to go see them in person to open up the multiple accounts and just make sure that you're not going to get any sort of fees for additional accounts or whatever charged to you. The other one that I personally use, which is in kind of a confusing state right now, is Spark Business through Capital One. They aren't open to new applications at the moment, and I'm kind of keeping my finger on the pulse with that, but I have really enjoyed working with them. They're the online version of Capital One's business banking unit. It is for small businesses specifically. They allowed me to open up 2 checking and 2 savings accounts at no minimum balance requirement and no monthly fees. I find their platform really just simple and easy to use, and I've personally liked working with them. However, they might be in a state of flux. And so I'm kind of standing by waiting for new information to come out. But that is one that you could check up on if you're listening to this interview at a later date and you want to look and see if it is available again. It's similar to their Capital One 360 product, which is their personal online banking side, but this is the business. It's Spark Business. Again, not available at this time, but I will keep you guys updated if I find out anything else. And then the other piece of this, there are other opportunities where local banks and credit unions, whether you have a community or even a regional bank nearby or a community, regional, local credit union, sometimes they are going to be the most helpful for you. This is one where you have to go in person and talk to them. But again, it is worth that initial effort to go get your business banking set up. Make sure you can get accounts that don't require you to have any fees. I wouldn't worry too much about the interest rates. So if they're like, okay, we can give you this account, it has no fees, no minimum balance, but you don't get any interest. For the most part, that's fine when you're doing business banking. If you're looking at more longer term, like 1 to 2 to 3 year for savings goals, then you could always just pull that out into a personal savings account and then reinvest it back into your business at a later date. And so that's what I would do, just so you don't have to pay fees, because that's stupid and you shouldn't have to do that. So a lot of local banks and credit unions will allow you to do this, but you have to go and sit down with the banker and talk to them. And in some cases, if you're trying to do the easy profit system, they might question you as to why you want to set up multiple checking and multiple savings accounts. But I would just have, an honest conversation and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I know this is going to help me in my business. I know it probably seems counterintuitive, but it works for me and I'm going to do it. Let me do it. But just having that conversation and giving them that face-to-face so that they can see that this is going to help your business and you're going to be depositing your money with them. So it's in their best interest to help you out. And if they're more local, then they're more prone to do that for you. Local banks and credit unions can often be the most easy to get this set up without any sort of monthly maintenance fees, without any minimum balance requirements, and the ability to open up the multiple accounts. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I know it's a lot of tangible banking talk, but it is super important and I think super helpful for those who are just getting started in setting up the financial system of their business, or who are considering, is this right for me? Should I be using a business bank account? Is my current business bank account really the best one? And sure, the switchover, again, similar to going in person and talking to the banker, maybe you want to switch from your current bank to a new bank, but it's causing you the headache of, this is going to take time and energy. In some cases, and I find this with a lot of my clients, it's so much less work than we make it up to be, but because there's money involved, because it's a financial thing, we think it's going to be really hard and complex and almost scary, and we allow that to paralyze us. Don't allow that to paralyze you. You can absolutely do this. Sometimes it's super easy. In some cases, it might take you a couple phone calls, waiting on hold, and going in person to have a chat. But at the end of the day, it is worth the switch if it's going to help you from a foundational financial standpoint, as well as for your business in general. So oftentimes it is worth the effort if there is any additional effort than what you really expected. So if you have any questions, by the way, about the business banking stuff, again, you can hit me up on Instagram at Tess_Wicks. Let me know if you liked this episode. Go ahead and share it. I would love to see you sharing, and I will most definitely give you a shout out if you do. If you guys want to tune in to my solo shows live and be able to interact and hang out with me for an hour or a little bit less, then go to wanderwealthy.com/TWE group or just search for the Wealthy Entrepreneur on Facebook. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about is coaching opportunities. So I am offering, I have one more business financial coaching slot open until the end of the year. And if you want to get it, go to wanderwealthy.com/apply. If you are looking for personal financial coaching, not business, but just focusing on personal financial coaching, then you can go to wanderwealthy.com, go to the work with me, and go to the traditionally employed instead of the self-employed tab and fill out the application there. Once you apply, you will book a discovery session and we'll get on the phone and chat about, what sort of business you're running, or if it's your personal, what sort of challenges you're bumping up against, what you're really looking for, what your goals are, and decide if coaching is the right fit for you. So wanderwealthy.com/apply, or just go to wanderwealthy.com, go to the work with me tab, find the right place to go for you. And don't forget to download the Easy Profit Roadmap by going to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap. My very last request is I am considering doing a group coaching program all around money mindset in early 2020. And I would love to get your questions, your feedback. Would you be interested in an opportunity to work with me in a group setting all about money mindset, learning more about the subconscious mind, how it works, and how you can identify some of the limiting beliefs and thoughts you might have going on in your head and reprogram those so that you can live in a world of more abundance and know that you can be the wealthy woman you want to be. So if you are interested in that, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to me on Instagram. Go ahead and message me at Tess_Wicks, or if you want to reach out to me on Facebook, you can reach me through the Wander Wealthy page. All right, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. To get the show notes, because I will link up some of those banks that I talked about, as well as include kind of a graphic that shows you the checklist of what to do to find the best bank account for you and utilizing some of my recommendations. You can get all of that by going to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 128. And again, I know there was a lot of information, a lot of links that I shared in this episode, so I will link all of that stuff up in the show notes, and you can get to the show notes at wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 128, or click the link in your podcast player in the description section. Okay, until next time, my friends, I hope you wander wealthy.